Hello, everyone. Hello. I hope you're ready. Uh, Next up, we have somewhat casual format, more casual format. We have some topics to go through, but more of a life experience, building apps, Dapps, etc., and developer best practices panel here. I'll be the moderator, and everyone will introduce themselves. Hi, I'm Noah. I'm a security researcher and a software architect. Yeah, I'll just be going through the questions, sorta, and providing minor feedback. Let's go on, Gabriel.
Yeah, my name is Gabriel. I'm working for a company called Emergentix. I'm leading the protocol development there. I'm doing a little bit of everything, to be honest. I'm working on the smart contracts, backend, front-end, heavy on the Web3 side, even though it's front-end and backend. And I would just add that I'm a true believer of bridging the Web 2 and Web 3 gap.
Nice, thank you. Yeah, agree with that. My name is Andre. I've built out the product design collective called Deep Work. I've been around since 2018, sorry, and worked with a lot of Web3 teams, technical teams on their products, UX, and user research. And my personal experience is more in organizational design, product design, and business management. And yeah, I also really want to bridge the gap between Web 2 and Web 3. So this is the moment.
Hey guys, my name is Alud, and just for the context of it, I basically built a liquid staking app on a small layer 1 EVM called Taraxa from the ground up. So I'm really hopeful that I'm going to provide you guys some very cool insights. And then yeah, I work with a lot of layer 1s and layer 2s. So I'm really hopeful that this is going to be a good one.
Hello there. Name's Damien. I'm currently working for Pi Squared and basically working to bring verifiability in a much better state in Web3. But in terms of building dApps, I would say that what I'm bringing to the table is, in terms of experience, I've pretty much whatever dApp you can think of, I've most likely tried building it at some point. Some I've actually built, some I've failed, but polymarket clone, done it. I don't know, liquid staking at some point, done it. Normal staking at some point, done it. NFT staking at some point, done it. NFT marketplace at some point, done it. Different stuff like this. I just like building stuff. Whether it's useful or not, that's another talk. That's for BD to decide. For us, it's to build.
Okay. Thanks for the intros. So yesterday we had a security panel and we talked about code smells and what can go wrong in the process, and we were just criticizing developers, right? So do you guys use deodorant, right? Do you smell? What's the code smells? What are the pitfalls for developers of the apps? And what exactly, let's keep it split between actual code, like Solidity stuff, and more like architectural, like just try to make the distinction clear there as well.
So hopefully we smell good, that's for sure. So is that more a question like what we are actually doing on a daily basis, or?
What are some practices? I mean, at some point you were
practices.
a junior and then you learned something. So what are the key learnings of the last X years that you would like, that you think can help people?
So I think asking for feedback from the early stages is like one of the most important advice I would get, because we as developers somehow we tend to hide all the complexities and show that we know everything, but it's not like that in reality. And the fact that we are working in the Web3 space, this is a totally new space. It's evolving on a daily basis. You need to be ready to learn new things and to admit that something that you know today might change tomorrow. So having this self-starter appetite and be ready to change your mind and be ready to face failure and negative feedback, because that's very hard to face. It's a critical thing.
I'm from a non-developer perspective, and also agree with that. Maybe to add on it, I think generally being open for collaboration is also pretty useful to think about, because everything changes all the time and like kind of everything is possible. Competition doesn't really like make sense anymore. Being open to the opinion and feedback of other people in the context of creating something together, I think is kind of a good starting point as well. So it's, of course, we get excited about cool new ideas, but then also it makes them even stronger if we get to collaborate with others.
I would say that you need to keep your files shorter than 300 lines. No, that's not it. That's not it. The like heaviest learning that I really basically want to take with me, and I would do differently, is if you as a team are not the user of what you're building, that's already like a huge red flag. It's super important to just take a step back, and we are seeing this especially in Web3 like all over the place. People who are actually building protocols, they never used it. I swear, like a lot of teams I just had a talk with, and they just don't touch their own product. It's impossible to build and to actually create something that the market requires without you actually being the alpha tester and really the one that iterates and gets their like opinion built into the application itself.
So one thing to not do, which I've heard over the last few days quite a few times, but I'll repeat it because it's very important, is obviously don't expose your API keys. And in terms of good practices, I agree with what the others said. But in terms of good practices, generally, obviously, use it as well for you. And when you are thinking about your user journey, where your user starts and where they want to end, try, while your app is in beta, try thinking who's your ideal user. And once you find that profile, find someone in real life that is that profile and give it to them. See and stay near them, kind of stalking them while they're using the app and see what they do. If you see they are having issues at a specific point, don't take it personal, just rebuild that part or tweak it or whatever. But the point is they're going to be offering specific feedback that might be very useful in what you're building.
Okay, thank you for the answers. Okay, to sort of up the ante, let's move to more sort of architecty questions. So when we're designing apps, right? Normally we just have this idea of we need to implement this business logic, but with this whole blockchain thing, now we have the question of which business logic is going to be in this public ledger system that is available to hackers, and which business logic is going to be off-chain, which business logic is going to be bound by, let's say, legal contracts, by back-end accounting, etc. So where do you guys, draw the line? What is food and what is a pet? What is on-chain? What is off-chain? To you guys? I mean, someone else can start as well. You don't need to follow fixed order.
Yeah, all right. So let me take this one first. I think I always start with the philosophy of drawing up the parts of data and the parts of business logic that really need to be on-chain. And basically that's like a very good starting point to actually iterate afterwards and see if there is any other critical aspect or any critical data that would really be good for the user to be added to that, else how basically that's what you roll with. Like, this is warranted to be on-chain, keep it that. Like, really, on-chain data and on-chain tools are not there to be abused. Usually I'm seeing a lot of dApps, just because they put things on-chain. I think that's a very, very bad design. And unfortunately, with the like increased TPS that we are seeing, this is a really, really frequent and reoccurring thing that is happening in the space right now. No, just keep it lean, keep what needs to be on chain. Everything else can go off chain. Now, depending on what you actually do, legal bindings, et cetera, that's up to the actual business logic itself.
Okay, and like, but this seems more of a, let's say, a hybrid app situation. What about pure DeFi apps? Like, how do you do those? Do you treat those like fully on-chain systems?
Yeah, I think when it comes to fully on-chain systems, the business logic and really the routing that you have implemented in the protocol itself defines, like, it gives you this answer. Like the moment that like you actually require that piece of building block for your business logic to make sense, you're there. Like, you just can't get rid of it, right? And then yeah, just keep it natural.
I would maybe add to that, or like kind of remember that business logic is kind of about humans for the most part in terms of the result of it. So we're designing socio-technical infrastructure, and the socio-economic behaviors co-evolve with the technology that we're creating. So it's a constant back and forth between understanding what is the value exchange and what are users paying for, what's the value that they're creating. Ultimately, they should feel like that exchange is fair, and how do we implement that in our model. And that's like, if you're talking about like legal frameworks or technical frameworks, it also depends on what you have access to. Like, sometimes you can't just, like, you just don't have the resources to set up something that would work in a specific stack or in a specific framework.
Okay. Anyone else wants to add?
I could add the fact that, for example, for the type of app where most of your logic has to be on chain, as you said, like for DeFi apps. So for those, even if most of it is, from my experience, even if most of the logic itself is on chain, most of the times you can add an off-chain layer that's helping with different things to scale the app. Like to, for example, sure, you can have a DEX where everything is on-chain, but you can also add an off-chain layer that helps you speed things up, like some indexings and some databases that back things up so you don't do as many RPC calls and so on. And I feel like, especially in the beginning when you start building stuff, if you're a beginner, it's tempting to put everything on-chain because it's easy. But once you do that, then going to the next level to actually build a scalable app, you need to start thinking, okay, how do I add a layer that's off-chain so that things are scalable? So I don't have 1,000 RPC calls per second if 1,000 users try to log in into my DEX at the same time, for example.
Okay. To sort of move on from this, so what would be the ideal stack here now in 2025? What is some of the ideal tooling for that for you guys?
So I think that everyone agrees that nowadays Next.js, if we were to take it from the front end, I would say Next.js for the front end side. For the back end, I see a lot of projects building on Node.js and Nest.js. Then for storage, of course, we see a lot of projects building using like legacy databases. We know that's like a hybrid approach, and it's not a true decentralization. So for that, we can use IPFS, for example, or even Arweave to store our data in a decentralized way. Of course, for smart contracts, I would add Foundry. I think everyone agrees that right now is the most performant development tool in terms of testing, because we have built-in fuzzing support. And yeah, we have things like indexers. So, when Ovidio said we have tools like Envio, the Graph, Ponder, which is a full backend for Web3 apps that helps us indexing data. And yeah, I will leave the others for my panelists.
Let me give you guys a bit of like a more radical approach to this, because 2 weeks ago we had a talk with the CEO of Adjust, Paul Müller, and what you need to know about that, like they're like a Web2 protocol, but they are basically the providers that enable any sort of ads on Facebook, Google, like whatever, like when you get that pop-up with like that annoying ad on the bottom of your phone, that's coming from them. So imagine the amount of data that they are processing. It's in the range of petabytes on a month. And he had this really, really interesting concept for tech stacks. And I think it really, really resonates well, especially in the Web3 world, that if you're not working terabytes of data on a monthly basis, then edge functions, server functions, microservices, hosting different types of like either Node.js backends is just like unwarranted. Everything that I just explained to you in this enumeration could be served by a simple Go backend on one machine. And this is it's like a very, very powerful statement. We have, I think like you went through 10 different providers that are just enabling basically data rendering, indexing, and like, of course, frameworks for smart contract development. But I feel like, at least when I'm trying to build something, I try to approach it in a minimalistic way, because on the scalability side, and if you really actually get the amount of users, descaling this very, very complicated stack on Web3 is like a big, big hurdle.
Okay.
If I can add, yeah, I had this dilemma whether or not we should use, multiple providers for, doing different things, because, nowadays there are a lot of providers that provide actually everything, like Third Web. They have the Connect SDK, the in-app, even the indexing things, they do have it. But at the end, I think it's more about decentralization, and having multiple providers means that there is no single point of failure. Because if you create a system that's independent and it's in-house, it's on-prem, what happens when something goes down? That's a dilemma, of course. I agree with you, but that's the reverse of the coin. Yeah.
Okay, so we opened some tooling, but this still seems like fairly. I mean, this is mature tooling for the modern web, but how do you feel about like the bottom sort of dropping out of the whole actual Dapps element, decentralized Dapps that run without any reliance on your own backend and stuff like that? Like, is privacy in that way dead? Is our fully censorship-resistant apps that don't even use a CDN dead?
You said about privacy, and the previous question was about. So it depends on what's your target audience, right? So if we aim to build for users, I think right now at this very moment privacy is not so important. But if we aim to build for institutional grade companies, governments, everything like that, they do need privacy first. So, exposing my wallet balance and wallet address, we saw in the past, vulnerabilities with MetaMask lacking IP, which, could track a wallet address to the user's location. And that's for sure something that still is keeping, institutionals away from the ecosystem. And to add on that, I think we should emphasize more on ZK proofs for sure, on fully homomorphic encryption native blockchains, where you can compute on encrypted data, and in this way you can onboard the masses. You don't have to leak any sensitive data.
Okay, but that's just the, let's say, execution engine side. But how do you feel about all the infrastructure supporting it? Like you mentioned, decentralization through using 2 or maybe 3 RPCs, but that's just 2 or 3 RPCs, and at the end of the day, it's barely censorship resistant, right? Because you still use a major CDN to host your websites. You said Next.js, but it's actually fairly difficult to run some Next.js applications on anything but Vercel, because Vercel does build a moat around itself. Like, just as an example from my circle, SofaScore is a major gambling company, like sports gambling company in Croatia. And they were like, okay, we're going to save a ton of money. We're going to shift our whole Next.js app infrastructure from Vercel to Cloudflare. And it was insanely difficult because they found that there were all these little tidbits of configuration that Vercel doesn't really document that they had to reverse engineer then. So we're talking about some privacy tooling. We're talking about these decentralized apps, but they run on a very corporate supported, very heavily infrastructure-specific stack, and they run on a very censorship-possible stack where you use a major CDN or you use major DNS. You couldn't. It would be extremely hard to even compile this and put it up onto something like IPFS.
Yeah,
right?
I don't want to take on too much on the microphone. So just to expand on that and give you a short answer, it's true. We can't expect the blockchain world to take on the whole world like tomorrow. It's a progress. It's a process first, and we need to be aware of that. We need to try to shift the focus from having centralized providers to decentralized ones. But we know for sure that down the road, we still need to depend on them until we reach a phase where we can discard everything.
Just to add on this, it would be, at least from this perspective, really good to finally have a big enough catastrophic scenario that triggers people to think about this. Because right now, quite honestly, privacy, nobody cares, right? There was this, just last week, there was the biggest data leak ever. And quite frankly, who cares, right? You change your password and there's basically no consequence. People just don't care about their data and the privacy of their data. There are regulators that care because they are actually building the framework. And maybe some people, but the masses, they don't. And that's kind of like the harsh truth, especially in Web3. Now, consumer crypto is all the buzz. DeFi is basically the main use case of everything. And yeah, the focus is shifting to the point that we want to make it easy, usable, and reachable so that even your dad can use it. Privacy just doesn't, it's not a high prior thing, right? It's not P0 right now, unfortunately.
So the reality is really that we're not even building Dapps, we're just building apps, right?
Exactly. That actually use some sort of blockchain tech, but it's not P0. That's the truth.
Okay. Anyone else got something to add?
So at some point, I did try seeing how far I can go into reasonably keeping a, let's say, relatively mainstream stack, but actually going as close to decentralized app as possible. And sadly, it's kind of a mess to do that, in the sense that many times you don't have the support you wish you would have, exactly because there are so few people that are going specifically for this. Sadly, I think the conclusion you got to that we're actually mostly building apps that have some sort of decentralized part is correct, but I don't think it's such a depressive conclusion as it sounds, because for example, sure, you have let's say an app that helps you trade your NFTs. Sure, it's not decentralized. You're trading them through an app that has a front end and so on that's centralized. But in the end, those NFTs are on chain. If the app goes down or try censoring, you still have the assets and you can get them somewhere else. So I would say that while it's not perfect decentralization, it's a good step forward, and it's not something that should make you say, okay, decentralized is dead and let's just leave the room and go for a beer.
Okay, so we're about halfway through. Let's spend the other half on positive notes. So we've gotten through this illusion. Now let's focus back on what really matters, and that's users. So, okay, can we just have a short like show of hands? Who here knows what is hallway UX testing? Like, have you heard the term hallway UX testing?
We should all have our hands raised.
Okay, so the next few things I'd like to open up are about actual user feedback, user testing, and how you approach the process of actually designing your software. Because generally everyone's sort of just criticizing UX in crypto, and it is horrible. It is cryptography. It is horribly hard to manage for your average user. So between like passkeys as a new thing and those like easier security measures and general like process there is to signing and how it works and all the features, like how do you approach it?
Yeah, so I think everyone in this room at least have heard about account abstraction, which is trying to solve this user experience problem for sure. Having embedded wallets just to address the login issue, where an embedded wallet gives you the ability to use any login method, like any Web2 legacy login method, for example, email, passkey, Face ID, even social login, and you get a built-in EOA for your app. And there are a lot of providers out there right now. As I said, Third Web, Privy. We just saw it was acquired a few days ago. So yeah, trying to design apps for users, you need to understand first that we need to abstract all the complexities for sure, and we need to think workflows that looks like Web2 workflows.
Yeah, I agree to that. I would zoom out a little bit, and I think I still keep hearing like, why don't we not have the next billion users on Web3 yet? And I think from a very top-down perspective, it's because we just ship incomplete experiments and use technical jargon. And I think that's okay because we just test things out. And I think I would look at it as like, we're still experimenting with things and seeing what comes back. And we're getting into a time where we can just run more of these experiments and more of them at the same time, more frequent ones, shorter ones. And to me, like the way to get to user adoption and create something that people really value and experience is just a culmination of a lot of these feedback loops and different experiments that you can set up, but that are also dependent on your personal skills and the technology that you're using and your creativity and putting them together into something that's like very unique and very easy to understand. So you build something, put it out there and see what comes back, and don't ignore the feedback, because it's sometimes painful to listen to people like not working through the journey that you've designed. And then go back to the drawing board and maybe like reduce something. I think one thing that I feel like is also often overlooked is the removal of parts. Like it's very easy for us to like create things and build them together and like be very excited about a big vision and want people to experience it. But it's also useful to kind of go back and be like, well, what's that experience really about? Like what can I remove from it? What do I want people to experience? And then see if they do.
Adding to your point, I think that because now we got to the point, like the Web3 market got to the point that like at the beginning you had a small group of believers, really adopters of the tech, and anything you shipped really, they picked it up, they were those types of like mechanic users that just wanted to understand everything. So basically this burden is just what wasn't like a thing, right? You always found at least a couple of users. Now, with the market being saturated and having some quality protocols out there, we are getting forced into actually rethinking And that is what is actually going to make the market move forward. And the other thing, with legislation coming into hand, if you have an opportunity and you have interested parties, take an institution with you, pilot with them, and they're going to give you a very, very good feedback about like, hey, like this protocol works, okay, it works, but like with this level of UX, with this level of usability or unusability, we're not going to ship this to our users. And that is going to be very pivotal. It's like super pivotal, super good for you because you're just having a lot of internal feedback and you're not actually like doing anything that is harming your brand. You're not shipping anything that at least a sub part of users are not okay with. And yeah, I think that is what is going to open the floodgates.
Just a quick note, and then we can go further. I'd say, I've been through what you said, and taking an institution with you and trying to pilot with them, and I have to say it was so depressive when I was focusing on complex things and building efficiency, and I saw that people trying it out would basically, I would see them crash out in front of me and basically getting absolutely stunned or blocked because, I don't know, I've changed the default UI to dark mode or something, and they weren't, them being pretty much tech illiterate, they weren't able to understand what's happening just because the UI was changed to dark mode. And realistically, we've got a long way to go until we can saturate that market. But yeah, as you said, it's very important to go through that as well.
Okay, so continuing sort of on this segue, so what are your like experiences with internal UX testing workflows and like user experience, user journeys, etc.? Like maybe more practical examples, specific stories, and things that you saw users doing, you know? Or like, are you even participating as developers in the UX flow, or do you feel that that's something that usually gets, let's say, put on the design team? Is there even a UX testing team, or is it just, you know, the designer just doing the design? How does it work for you guys?
Sorry, so the question is more about process or more like specific examples?
How does the user interface design happen? Because there's many ways it could happen, right? It could be the CEO's head, or it could be based on feedback from real users trying to use a platform.
I think one thing that's very important from this point is that you don't test internally, but that you test with people who don't know your product yet. And user researcher, Sasha Tanase. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm also a little bit biased because we're an external kind of like organizational external collective, and we come into teams, existing teams, and actually facilitate sessions to align developers, business people, designers on the experience that they want people to have, so that you get the ideas and the knowledge from all of these expertises, and together design what is possible, and then make sure that you can actually implement it and test that. But yeah, I mean, that's, I guess, like in a nutshell, that would be the process. Just like take everybody from the whole team who has a stake in the project, align them on exactly what the user journey should be like, because everybody knows best what they can bring to the table from their expertise. And then prototype it before even building anything, because otherwise you might just waste a lot of money. And yeah, and I mean, again, even user research, I think, should be done by an external person in order to stay unbiased. Because if you do the user research as someone who's like building that thing, then you'll be like kind of imagining that the person would say exactly what you want them to say, and you might misinterpret their feedback. You might not pay attention to their facial expressions.
So yeah, researcher bias.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So I think it's very important to, or I would recommend to involve external parties to actually do that testing, like you would with a security audit. Does that answer your question more or less?
Yeah, very much.
I can pitch into this. So at least in how it currently works in my team is as follows. But to be noted that we're mostly still building lots of demos, proof of concepts or stuff like that. So we generally try to ship fast. We're not fiddling too much with things. So generally we have a developer drawing up like a very crude design of a flow they're thinking about of implementing, that then goes to our designer that will aim to actually make it pretty and usable. Once that is done, it's the changes are then implemented by said designer. Then it goes into another phase where people from the company that are not techie test it out, basically throw dirt at it. And then the developer will again do like a third version in which the non-tech opinions are taken into account. And then we say, okay, it's kind of fine to ship. Then obviously some improvements if we see users struggle in different things, but this is like a end-to-end workflow of what we're doing before actually going to real users.
Chiming in here for probably like the builders that have been in the space for a long period of time, especially in DeFi. Do you guys remember those times when we just built something, there was a community around, we shipped fast, and then like it was this like hunt of like I shipped this, but I wanted that. And then I ship it again, and then the community wants something else. And then I ship it again, and then the community finds another problem there. Now, I still see that a lot of like small developer teams of small protocols are kind of like stuck in this. And they're always complaining about the fact that they're actually never going to find product market fit because the sample and the community that they're actually testing with is so biased, and they know their tools. They know their application, that simply the input that they get is just so altered and so specific that they just can't scale with that. And then to do another round on this, there are the other teams that actually strip away. They have bigger communities and then strip away a small subset of OGs that basically get the opportunity to see the first pilot versions of next features or next versions of protocols, and they basically do the user testing with these people. This is the other very frequent type that I can see in the space. Well, whether this is good or not good on institutional level, definitely not going to cut it. For small projects, it's pretty nice because like you get a lot of free feedback and potential really good improvements, but it's definitely not a perfect flow.
So just to give a real world example of how we are doing things at Emergentix. So first thing first, we allocate a small team on building a specific product, a specific app. Then once we have that app, we get our CEO and CTO on board, and to try and test the app, because we are trying first to create apps that solves real world problems, and we are trying to build apps that we would actually use and see if these flows make sense for us first, and then put it out there, share the MVP, and grab some feedback.
Okay, thank you, Ron. So we have about a minute left here. So I was just thinking like really short, like 15 seconds each. Like if you were starting from scratch today, prazan list potpuno čist, empty slate, right? What would be the one thing you would do differently? Just like one sentence in order, or whoever's ready first.
Contributing to open source projects at the early stage, because there's a lot of value in there and feedback for sure.
I would definitely be more of a user than a builder. I feel like I spent a lot of time on designing and implementing things that made sense for us, really. And obviously getting negative feedback on that hurts. And then I slowly realized that when you get inside this loop of trying to please your users, you're basically getting so out of touch of what the market actually requires that it's very, very hard to get back into it. So be a user, understand what the market de facto standard is, and then always have that in mind when you're actually building something.
Probably one of the biggest issues I had at the beginning that I would avoid at all costs would be so I would avoid testing on mainnet. Yeah. That was a very big issue for me in the beginning.
I just one thought. Okay, I would probably experiment testing with money directly and try to, basically sell, because it will refine your intuition and comfort with what's valuable and what people perceive as valuable, and what you can create for people that's higher value than their perceived investment, and use that sense of what people need to build technical infrastructure that creates value rather than extracting.
Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. I'm just gonna add one answer for myself as well. I would spend so much more on the requirements docs for every single client. My God. And yeah, now we can go into the Q&A, hopefully.
Does anyone? That's loud. Does anyone have questions? Daniel, I know
or
you have a
if a
question.
certain UX researcher from the audience would like to add her own word.
You would like to? Oh, you would like to make a point? Yeah. Okay.
So first of all, excellent panel. I'm very happy to hear more and more about builders taking into account testing, which is great. It was really funny because I heard internal testing and I got short-circuited, and then Andre chimed in, which is great. I think all the builders should understand that it's much cheaper to test out the idea. Like just, I have an idea, go talk to 10 people who might be exactly like you said. I imagine these are the people that might actually use my idea. Let me talk to them and see how it actually works. Maybe it's useful, maybe it's not. Maybe it's only for you. And it's much, much cheaper to do it like that. Internal testing is not amazing. It's good only for finding like visual issues and bugs. And I would consider it more like dog fooding, which is again a very good thing. But testing should be done with unbiased participants, unbiased researchers. The team is great to be there observing because it's easier to get it from the horse's mouth, but shouldn't be done by the designer who is already invested. And most of you said it's very hurtful and painful to hear about feedback, like negative feedback. I think we should reframe this because feedback is a gift, and any bad feedback or negative feedback is actually an opportunity. So we need to break things faster, learn faster that our product maybe is not yet perfect, but this is great. It means we're on the right track. And as a researcher, if you hear only good feedback...
That's amazing, that's amazing. Sorry to interrupt. Do you have a
thing-
question? I love the point. It's just getting a bit long.
Okay, can I finish? Thank you. So as a researcher, the first thing, if you hear that if you have too much good feedback, it means you're doing a poor job. Thank you.
Thank you.
So yeah, in short, not just the brawn, get the brains. Think about what you're doing, get a security researcher and a UX researcher in the loop early. We got some more questions? Yeah?
Okay, so we're talking about Dapps, and in the last time, I'm not sure exactly how, I haven't seen a lot of new types of Dapps coming up, just copies of things that already exist on the chain. Do you feel like we've built everything that we could have built before, or are there still things that we can create? new things?
I think there's a lot of new going on. We can. It is not obvious until it hits you in the face, you know. But I see a massive raise in faster order books, which have sometimes higher capital efficiency and stuff like that. On DeFi side, new solutions for privacy, etc. You know, there's always more. You guys got some?
I would just encourage everybody to like go out and do a lot of non-monetary things and think about how we can solve social problems with blockchain tech.
And one more point to this is that, like, back in the days when we didn't really have available solutions for problems or for use cases, it was more obvious that, okay, now, like, next week I have something that I can use for this. I have something that I can use for that. Before that, I didn't even think about something like this happening, right? So now, I again agree that there is a lot of new. It's just, it's incremental. It's better than something that was before, but then it might happen that a lot of the market doesn't realize, because there is a cost to switching that might not be basically covered enough for the user base to actually drastically switch, and then obviously like the news are not hitting because of this, and there's not that big of an echo chamber effect.
Any other questions from the audience?
Yeah, that's loud. What do you think about sacrificing decentralization for user experience when building an app?
Go first, Olivier, if you want.
So I think it all depends on who's your target audience, once again. Like, if your target audience is just, for example, a bunch of people that want to make a quick buck, absolutely, go for it. If, for example, your target audience is someone is like the ideal person that would use your app is someone of, I don't know, privacy freak, then absolutely don't do that. Everything is depending simply on who is going to be the user that you want your app to use. And you gotta research the market for your app for that, after all.
So I think the question was about decentralizing, right, the user experience. I think to circle back, it's more about relying on multiple different parties, at least nowadays, to build your app. It's not just about having a single provider out there for your app, for Wallet Connect, RPC, indexing, and so on. So just decentralized, for now at least, the tech stack, and then we'll figure it out.
Okay, we have time for one very, very, very short final question. Anyone up?
I know Daniel had a question.
Okay, thank you very much.
No, okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please put together your hands for our wonderful panelists here. And